puppets of the Pentagon, a state within a state, and the weapons manufacturers who lavishly fund their think tanks, Project for the New American Century, Foreign Policy Initiative, American Enterprise Institute, Center for a New American Security, Institute for the Study of War, Atlantic Council, and Brookings Institute. Like some mutant strain of an antibiotic-resistant bacteria, they cannot be vanquished. It does not matter how wrong they are, how absurd their theories of global dominance, or how many times they lie or denigrate other cultures and societies as uncivilized, or how many they condemn to death. They are immovable props, parasites, vomited up in the dying days of empire, ready to sell us the next virtuous war against whoever they have decided is the new Hitler. The map changes, but the game is the same. Pity our prophets, those who wander the desolate landscape crying out in the darkness. Pity Julian Assange, undergoing a slow-motion execution in a high-security prison in London. He committed the empire's fatal sin. He exposed its crimes, its machinery of death, its moral depravity. A society that prohibits the capacity to speak in truth extinguishes the capacity to live in justice. Some here today might like to think of themselves as radicals, maybe even revolutionaries. But what we are demanding on the political spectrum is in fact conservative. It is the restoration of the rule of law. It is simple and basic. It should not, in a functioning republic, be incendiary. But living in truth, in a despotic system, one the political philosopher Sheldon Wolin called inverted totalitarianism, is an act of subversion. The architects of imperialism, the masters of war, the corporate-controlled legislative, judicial, and executive branches of government, and their obsequious mouthpieces in the media and academia are illegitimate. Say this simple truth and you are banished, as many of us have been, to the margins. Prove this truth, as Julian did, and you are crucified. Red Rosa now has vanished too. Bertolt Brecht wrote of the murdered socialist Rosa Luxemburg. She told the poor what life is about, and so the rich have rubbed her out. We have undergone a corporate coup d'etat, where the poor and working men and women, 60% of whom lack $400 to cover an emergency expense, are reduced to chronic instability. Joblessness and food insecurity are endemic. Our communities and cities are desolate. War, financial speculation, constant surveillance, and militarized police that function as internal armies of occupation are the only real concerns of the state. Even habeas corpus no longer exists. We as citizens are commodities to corporate systems of power, used and discarded, and the endless wars we fight overseas have spawned the wars we fight at home. As the students I teach in the New Jersey prison system are acutely aware, all empires die in the same act of self-immolation. The tyranny that the Athenian Empire imposed on others, Thucydides noted in his history of the Peloponnesian War, it finally imposed on itself. To fight back, to reach out and help the weak, the oppressed, and the suffering, to save the planet from ecocide, to decry the domestic and international crimes of the ruling class, to demand justice, to live in truth. To smash the graven images is to bear the mark of Cain. Those in power must feel our wrath, which means acts of sustained, nonviolent, civil disobedience, social and political disruption. Organized power from below is the only power that can save us. Politics is a game of fear, and it is our duty to make those in power very, very afraid. The ruling oligarchy has locked us in its death grip. It cannot be reformed. It obscures and falsifies the truth. It is on a maniacal quest to increase this obscene wealth and unchecked power. It forces us to kneel before its false gods. And so, to quote the Queen of Hearts, metaphorically of course, I say, off with their heads.
The America we love doesn't march us into World War, debilitating an entire generation's future. The America we love doesn't throw money endlessly at the military-industrial complex while neglecting its citizens' needs. The America we love doesn't make money off of global death and destruction. The America we love doesn't jail publishers and journalists who expose government crimes, abuse, and overreach. The America we love doesn't use her might to intimidate and destroy other nations, ultimately holding back human beings from living a life of dignity. The America we love doesn't put war profits over people. The America we love doesn't hinder peace talks and doesn't vow to fight to the last human being. Do you hear us, Washington? You are not running us into the America we love. You're destroying us. Hear us loud and clear. No more war. 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 No NATO. No war. No NATO. No war. No NATO. No war. No NATO. No war. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. We want to welcome up here next another incredible voice for truth, raging against the war machine. Let's welcome Garland Nixon, political analyst and radio talk show host. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Now that we've got all the smart people out of the way, it's my turn. Hello to Ray Epps. I think I see him right over there. Great. Nice to see you. I want to start by saying this. You know, I've been interviewed a bunch of times today, and I kept getting asked the same question: why are you here? What are you doing here? Why? What's the reason? My reason is this. I think it's time to tell these pipeline blowing up, mylar balloon shooting down bastards that we've had enough. I don't think it's complicated. You know, I think it's time to say, look, you have every reason in the world for us to fight amongst ourselves so we can't see what you're doing. A perfect example, I'm a lefty. No doubt, no shame in my game, I'm way over there to the left. But, when I grew up, my dad was a longshoreman. He put on a hard hat and he went out in the cold. Then on the weekends, he was a mechanic. He'd lay under cars and work under cars and do things like that. Then I started a job. I became a police officer. And I was a police officer for many years. But I'm a lefty and I'm way over there, and you're not supposed to like me. I'm not supposed to be a person that you can agree with and work with. Why? Because I'm a lefty and there are some areas that we disagree. But I will guarantee you that there are people here who hear my story and say, my dad worked under a car. My dad wore a hard hat. Maybe we didn't have much, maybe we did. My dad had beagles. You know why? Because he was a rabbit hunter, and he went out and he hunted rabbits. He was in a union. He was a lefty. The Longshoremen Union is the left of left union. But there are a lot of people sitting here who hear the story and say, you know, I'm told we're not supposed to have anything in common and we're not supposed to work together. But that life kind of sounds like my life because it's an American life. But it is not the life of these pipeline bombing, mylar balloon shooting bastards, these elite ruling class people who are putting all of our lives in jeopardy. We are the ones who have more in common with each other than we do with them. And we're waking up. And the mainstream media didn't cover this. This is what? Alternative media. People are migrating to alternative media because they've had enough. They're tired of being lied to constantly. They're tired of being looked down upon by these elitists. So I'm here today to send a message to everyone. Look, there's people on the left, there's people on the right, there's going to be people that you disagree with. But if you sit down and talk to most Americans, you'll find your life is not much different than theirs. And the way you see the world is not a whole lot different than theirs. And when that happens, and it's happening now, we can come together and we can take a government that is completely decoupled from the constituents, that does not represent us in any way, and we can force them, once again, if they ever did, but we can force them to do the things that we want them to do, to work for us, and we can stop this war machine, and that's what we're going to do. This is the beginning of it. It's going to happen. Thanks, everybody. Free Julian Assange!
In Ukraine, Antiwar beings and war between Russia and the United States begins. Retaliation for a U.S. cruise missile strike against Russian forces, Russia fires a missile and sinks a U.S. guided missile cruiser in the Black Sea around the Earth. The temperatures fall below freezing every day for the next 3 years. Ice age weather prevents food crops from being grown for 10 years. Most humans and other land animals are starved to death. This is a mass extinction event.
It is this criminal policy of nuclear brinkmanship which contains the danger of the annihilation of the entire human species in a global nuclear war and following nuclear winter, which is what automatically makes every individual on Earth a world citizen who has to take the responsibility for the outcome of this present conjuncture of human history. We therefore want to catalyze an international movement of world citizens people are committed to propose a new international security and development architecture which will take into account the interests of every single country concerned. This concept, to consider the interests of every country, was the principle of the Peace of Westphalia, which laid the basis for peace after 150 years of religious war in Europe, and represented the beginning of international law and laid the foundation for the UN Charter, which we need to uphold and reassert.
All right, let's welcome our next speaker. We have got a 13-year veteran of the global war on terror with us today. Yikes. And do we have any other veterans in the audience? You guys are a greatly underutilized demographic. We should be having veterans front and center and speaking out against these horrendous wars. So let's welcome Dan McKnight to the stage, a veteran of the global war on terror and chairman of Bring Our Troops Home. Thanks for being here, Dan.
Thank you so much, Angela. My name is Dan McKnight. I'm the chairman of a veterans organization called Bring Our Troops Home. And we advocate for Congress to reclaim their authority and never let a single president, man, woman, Republican, or Democrat ever take our country into war again. Congress must be the only body, the representatives of the people, to properly debate and declare war. If war is necessary, let the representatives of the people do it. You know, I hate coming to Washington, D.C. I hate it. It's where our once humble government, limited government republic came to die. It didn't die because the people voted for it to die, or because the age-old ideas are now valueless. It was murdered. It was murdered by a concept that Americans don't understand. It was murdered by an establishment that only serves their own self-interests. I ask you, when was the last time something good and decent came out of Washington, D.C.? This is where it was decided, based on lies, to take our country into war in Iraq, and in Afghanistan, and Syria, and Yemen, and Kosovo, and Korea, and Vietnam. And if we don't do something soon, in Ukraine. This is where it was decided that the Fourth Amendment just simply didn't matter, and our government could spy on us without a warrant. This is where it was decided to imprison and torture journalists like Julian Assange and pressure media platforms to ban anyone who dissents with the war party's narrative. It's my contention that only problems start in Washington, D.C. There are no solutions in this town. So why are we here? Why are we here? We're here because they don't listen. We're here to let our voices be heard. I was honored to be invited to speak at this event, and I'm astonished by the amount of logistics, the people that are here, and all the support, the lineup of speakers, and I'm blessed to share the stage with each and every one of them. Every person here is passionate about ending our endless and undeclared wars. But today, I want to present you with parallel action. In addition to the marches and the rallies and the signs and the DC-focused activism, I don't know if any of that actually grows our movement. We have to take the lever of power back to where we have the most effect. My organization, Bring Our Troops Home, is the vanguard of the Defend the Guard legislation. Defend the Guard is a state-based legislation that would prohibit the state's National Guard from being deployed into active combat duty overseas, absent a declaration of war from Congress. By the way, that declaration of war from Congress is required under the Constitution in Article 1, Section 8. It's not talked about enough, but the National Guard is the backbone of the active duty military fighting force, and it makes up 45% of all of the boots on the ground that have fought in the global war on terror. Without the Guard's manpower, the Washington, D.C. imperial ambitions would become impossible. If we had to defend the Guard in just a few states 20 years ago, the Iraq invasion would have never happened, no matter how much George Bush and Dick Cheney wanted it. This past Wednesday, our Defend the Guard legislation passed a Senate committee vote in Arizona. A majority of the legislators on that committee, including the chairman and the Senate Majority Leader himself, and our bill sponsor, a retired Lieutenant Colonel Senator who served in the United States Air Force, voted in favor of the bill. This is not a feel-good legislation. It's not to pat ourselves on the back. It's an actionable bill that means something, that takes some teeth away from the military-industrial complex and the establishment warmongers. And when it passes, it'll be the first domino in the collapse of this globalist experiment. My organization, Bringing Our Troops Home, has already gotten this bill introduced in, let me check my numbers here, in 16 states so far this year. We've already had 5 hearings. We have bill sponsors in over 40 states. My organization, Bringing Our Troops Home, has seen the minds changed in Phoenix, Arizona, Charleston, West Virginia, Concord, New Hampshire, more so than we ever have on Capitol Hill. And this is the geographical point on the planet where the largest military empire in the history of the world is the strongest. So why do we waste our effort trying to crack the toughest nut? Who else thinks it's time to abandon this pantomime of influence and begin fomenting some sort of rebellion in the provinces and in the states? Here is a real action item. Everybody here, please take out your phones. Go to defendtheguard.us, sign our petition. The signatures that we gather will be used to influence change in the legislatures across the country at the state level. Enlist in our movement. Let's permanently break the back of the D.C. war party and restore the United States Constitution and bring our troops home from their endless and undeclared adventures around the world. The revolution isn't going to happen in D.C. It's not going to happen on K Street. It's going to happen in Phoenix and Missoula and Bismarck and Boise and Tallahassee. It's going to happen in the state capitals all across the country. I hope that you will join us and effect change in a much more hospitable soil than what we see right here in the swamp of Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
All right, next up, we have a speaker who just ran against Chuck Schumer, our favorite, in New York. This is Diane Sayre with the Schiller Institute, and she's here to rage against the war machine.
Good afternoon. I want to especially thank Nick and Angela for pulling all of us together. And I am pleased that we have smoked out hundreds of FBI agents and thousands of NAFO trolls just by sticking together to oppose our nation from plunging us into the abyss of thermonuclear war. We are here because there seems to be no bottom, no boundary to the depravity of our own government. They would never do that. Has been violated repeatedly to the point that we can be almost certain that if we, the people, don't step in, we are headed over the cliff to nuclear annihilation. We are here
Because we've been living a lie.
You all right, mister?
As poor Lady Macbeth discovered, once you commit one crime, tell one lie, it multiplies until you reach your end. Unless you choose not to be tragic. We are here because we choose not to be tragic.
Oh, God.
For us, we don't work for them. I want to leave on this note. Free Julian Assange! 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 Thank you.
Oh, I'm stupid. I thought that was a sign.
Thank you, Tara!
I'm such a jerk.
All right, next up, we got a very special guy. This is Jackson Hinkle of the Dive, and he's here to tell you why we need to stop this war. Jackson Hinkle!
Washington, D.C., how we doing? Look at all of you. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. We got leftists, we got communists, right-wingers, conservatives, paleo-conservatives, libertarians, Green People Party. We got everyone here today, and you look great. So listen, I know there's a little controversy about me speaking, but the truth is that we are here today because we oppose war and we want peace. It's as simple as that. Okay? And when my ancestors came over to America on the Mayflower and they fought in the American Revolution, they didn't want war either. They wanted peace. When my grandfathers fought against Nazis in World War II and put their lives on the line, they did not want war. They wanted peace. And that's why we are here today.
Yeah!
And war is not easy to talk about. Most of us have never experienced it. Some of us try to forget it. Some of us try to never even think about it because of how damning it is. And I don't blame most of you, but everyone here today thinks about it, understands how evil it is, and understands that the hell it truly raises. And if I can for a moment, I'd like to share a little bit of that hell with all of you right now, because in Ukraine, 16 and 17-year-old boys, not men, but boys, are being rounded up by the hundred and sent to the front in Bakhmut. And you know what happens when they get there? They get sent into trenches and they're told, you have 4 hours to live once you get sent out there. That's the average life expectancy of a Ukrainian soldier on the front in Bakhmut, 4 hours. And the blood of those young men, the blood of every Russian, the blood of those in Ukraine, in the Donbass, in Donetsk, Lugansk, Mariupol, the blood of those in Zaporozhye and Kherson and Kharkov, all across the region of fighting, is on the hands of those in the United States Congress right now. The suits that they wear are drenched in their blood. The food that they eat is a blood stew. The halls of Congress that they go vote in to send $10 billion more to Ukraine, the roofs are dripping with the blood of those Ukrainian soldiers. And if you listen closely, you can hear it right now. You can. So I want to leave you with something right now, because people often ask me, what is it that we can do? We're on the precipice of World War III. What is it that we can do? We want peace with the Russians. We want to build a new multipolar world. We want peace. We want prosperity. We want to lift the global masses out of poverty. That's what we all want, right? But there's a select few who understand that if they take us to World War III, And if they toy around with the idea of mutually assured destruction and nuclear Armageddon and hundreds of thousands of lives being lost, they stand to make a lot of money.
Right.
So, what I need you all to do from this point onward is to continue this energy you have here today. Fight the information war. Demand not one more bullet, not one more tank, not one more gun, not one more piece of artillery, not one more dollar, not one more penny be sent to the Nazis in Ukraine. Demand peace. Thank you all for being here. Continue this energy.
Congress taking quick action, approving a $13 billion deal to help Ukraine. School districts across our area tell us they're seeing significant increases in children that are homeless.
I'm announcing another $800 million to further augment Ukraine.
A revealing look at homelessness among the middle class.
The U.S. have announced new military assistance for Ukraine. They promised an extra $713 million.
We experienced as a county a 22% increase in homelessness.
The Senate overwhelmingly passing a new $40 billion Ukraine aid bill.
We are learning the homeless problem we are seeing in Knoxville is growing at an alarming rate.
The U.S. is sending an additional $700 million in military aid.
We're in dire straits. We don't know where we're going to go. We have no savings.
The U.S. is sending an additional $1 billion in weapons and aid to Ukraine.
The CEO of the Coalition for the Homeless of Central Florida tells me this is a scary trend.
Pentagon announcing today it's sending a new $450 million military package to Ukraine.
Tonight we are going in depth on the issue of homelessness, of course, a growing problem here in Colorado.
The U.S. is sending an additional $400 million in military aid. Rising housing costs and inflation are leading to more people living on the street.
The United States is sending another $1 billion in military aid.
69,000. That's how many people are homeless across LA County.
A new aid package is going to be announced tomorrow, including an additional $3 billion to train and equip Ukrainian forces.
Sacramento's homeless population had a jump of 67%. The White House now asking Congress for more than $13 billion in additional military aid. More than 2,500 students within the district don't have a place to call home.
Yeah, Katie, and that's about more from last year.
Well, the Biden administration preparing to send another $600 million military package to Ukraine.
There's a stark warning from city officials tonight as they're seeing a record number of families out on the streets.
$275 million to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs.
One LA County city is close now to declaring a state of emergency over homelessness.
The White House is also asking for $37.7 billion to fund the war in Ukraine.
Housing prices are up 17% from the previous year. And you can see the fallout of that just right behind me here.
The Biden administration is terrible. Republicans and Democrats have absolutely failed us, especially when it comes to this war. I think the United States really needs to start looking at different options. And on that note, I would love to introduce 2016 Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein. Thank you so much for being here. Third party in spirit.
All right, wow, you are beautiful. It is so wonderful to be here today, to see us all across the political spectrum. And I just want to say, in my experience, it's not so much a matter of right or left. It's really a question of the few elites at the top versus all the rest of us. And that's what they are afraid of. So we're here today not just to rage against the war machine, we're here to dismantle the war machine because it is hurting us all. No one more than the people of Ukraine, who are the cannon fodder in this superpower proxy war. We need a movement to overcome the powerful special interests behind the war machine, the war profiteers, the fossil fuel barons, the health insurance barons who are profiting from the carnage. And in the interests of building that movement, I want to clarify today some of the forbidden truths that we are not supposed to talk about. These are the empowering truths the war machine does not want us to know. This is especially for the benefit of the people who are just waking up to realize that we are all in the crosshairs of this crisis. Martin Luther King spoke the first forbidden truth nearly 60 years ago, that the U.S. war machine is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. And it is much bigger now, and it's impoverishing and endangering us all. It squanders 2/3 of our discretionary budget. It puts at grave risk virtually every dimension of our security, nuclear, economic, food, climate, energy, everything. Left to its own devices, the war machine, with its proxy NATO, will destroy life on the planet. It is in the process of doing that right now. The dimensions of the war machine, you may know, are quite totally off the charts. The U.S. has some 800 foreign bases, while Russia has about 30. Our so-called war on terror continues in a mind-boggling 85 countries. Do we hear about that? Not one bit. Our wars are going on in 85 countries. Our $840 billion, and that, by the way, is from the Cost of War project at the Boston University, not exactly a hotbed of radicalism. These are the basic truths that we are not supposed to know. Our $840 billion military budget is equivalent to the next 9 military budgets combined, and the $100 billion we are spending to support war in Ukraine, that alone is greater than the entire annual Russian military budget. We've conducted over 250 military interventions in the past 20 years alone and killed a staggering 6 million people in just a portion of the so-called U.S. war on terror. This murderous military spending consumes resources desperately needed here at home by 70,000 people who die each year for lack of health insurance, for 500,000 homeless people on any given night out on the street, for 33 million mired in student debt, 100 million in medical debt, 22 million impoverished children, and on and on. U.S. imperial aims are clearly stated in our official military policy known as full spectrum dominance, an all-purpose declaration of war for all time against all economic and military competitors, friend or foe, which leads to the second forbidden truth, namely that the U.S. empire has been provoking war with Russia for decades. However murderous and illegal the Russian invasion is, and all wars are murderous and almost all wars are illegal, that Russian invasion was a provoked response to an even bigger, more murderous, illegal game plan of the U.S. empire, in which defeating Russia is just one small part. So yes, Russia illegally invaded Ukraine, but did so with a gun to its head, or in this case, nuclear-compatible missiles to its head. When the roles were reversed and Russian nukes were at our doorstep in the Cuban Missile Crisis, our response was what? It was to begin immediately launching nuclear war. That puts Russia's invasion in perspective and makes it rather moderate by comparison. Khrushchev and Kennedy had the good sense to back off and negotiate. We need to follow their example now. Instead of engaging peace overtures, the U.S. has been throwing billions in weapons and economic aid to keep this war alive, even blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, it appears, to prevent Germany from backing out in the face of economic disaster. If the U.S. wasn't afraid of finding out, of confirming that we were the ones behind the Nord Stream disaster, we would be investigating, not celebrating, which is what we are doing. So I just want to add, the nuclear threat produced by all of this is an emergency of the highest order. And we are all in the crosshairs of this emergency. Yet our leaders are playing a game of nuclear chicken, pretending nuclear war is winnable. If as few as 100 nuclear bombs are dropped, that alone is enough to trigger nuclear winter, which means most of us are going and we're on our way out. So this is absolutely unacceptable. Also, the Ukraine conflict is accelerating destruction of the climate, which is already at the brink of collapse. The bottom line is this war and the war machine that it's a part of are endangering and impoverishing all of us. Martin Luther King had it right, not only about the U.S. being the greatest purveyor of violence, but also that militarism doesn't stand alone. It is joined at the hip with what Martin Luther King called the triple evil of militarism, racism, and materialism. That's why the crisis of empire is inseparable from the crisis of racial and economic equality and the crisis of democracy that allows our policies to be bought and paid for by the highest bidders, in this case, Wall Street and the war profiteers. On each of these crises, we have hit the breaking point. For that reason, and the practical matter of reaching critical mass, we need a broad movement for peace, justice, and democracy. With us against the political and economic elites, the 1% against the 99. We need that broad movement. And as a first step, we need an immediate ceasefire and negotiations to ensure the security and autonomy of all parties as provided in the Minsk Accords. This is not rocket science. As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, it never will. We are here today to build that demand until it cannot be denied. Our very lives depend on it. Thank you so much for making it happen.
Thank you, Jill. How's everyone doing? Does this feel good to be here in D.C. raging against the war machine? We got a lot more great people you're going to hear from. Next is Gerald Celente. He is the publisher of the Trends Journal and the founder of Occupy Peace. Gerald Celente. Gerald Celente.
I don't know if it was Jesus, Muhammad, or Buddha, but one of them said, you better boogie before the lights go out because tomorrow is iffy. And boy, is it iffy. Rage against the war machine. Rage, I looked up what it means, to show that you are very angry about something or someone. He raged against the injustice of all. And that's what it is, anger. I am angry. And he who is not angry when there is just cause for anger is immoral. Why? Because anger looks to the good of justice. And if you can live amid injustice without anger, you are immoral as well as unjust. That was from St. Thomas Aquinas. Joe Biden, that guy, you know, he says he's a practicing Catholic. I don't know what Prince of Peace he looks up to, man. But hey, how about what St. Thomas Aquinas says? Now there's a guy that loved every war, and he's a few years older than me and was a draft dodger in Vietnam. All of these little old tough guys with a pair of cojones smaller than a mothball that love to send people to go die. How about Bill Clinton? Every time he got caught with his pants down, it's bombs away over Baghdad. How about the Nobel Peace or Crap Prize winner, Barack Obama? I want that guy Assad out of there. No, you have to say it properly, Sunenti. You said it like you're an Italian. Assad has to go. Gaddafi has to go. We have to murder all of these people all over the world, and I'm going to bring the troop surge in, and I'll win a Nobel Peace Prize. But you have to do it properly. You have to keep saying folks, 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 and that's all he did was focus. I am angry at the mainstream media prostitutes. These little media whores that get paid to put out by their corporate pimps and their government whoremasters. All they do is keep selling war, hate, fear, and hysteria. They ban us who speak for peace, love, facts, and freedom. The big story making the news. Vice President Kamala Harris announced that the United States formally determined that Russia committed crimes against humanity. Hey, Harris, did you like the Iraq War? How many people did Miss Stein say America's killed? How about those crimes against humanity? And where's the Cartoon News Network, CNN? Oh, showing everything the crap spewing out of Kamala's mouth, but never showed every day of Americans slaughtering people all over Iraq. They never showed the Americans' 20-year war in Afghanistan, slaughtering people every day. But every day they have the Ukraine war. Every day they're media pimps. I am angry. Yep, because anger looks toward the good of justice, and the Congressional Crime Syndicate running and ruining America by their constant warmongering deeds is immoral. They call where we are Washington. Guess what? Washington must be turning in his grave. That's right! To see the little freaks that they call Congress, that they call Washington. This is President Washington, a guy that crossed the Delaware, that really fought, not like you little guys playing president, not like you little boys and girls playing Congress. Can you imagine Mitch McConnell fighting? Little Lindsey Graham fighting? Little Adam Schiff fighting? George Washington warns us, his farewell address, no foreign entanglements. Quote, it is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world. The nation which indulges towards another's habitual hatred or habitual fondness is in some degree a slave. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slavelandia. Because that's what they've done to us. The plantation workers of Slavelandia. Jill Stein and others gave all the facts about how the war machine is robbing us of our money. And look at the lives of what's happening in this country. I launched Occupy Peace nearly a decade ago. And I've had a number of peace rallies. Our platform is honor the founding fathers, close up all of those bases overseas, and bring the troops home. Secure the homeland with our troops. Give them skills, put them to work rebuilding our third world rotted infrastructure. And then finally, you want to go to war? Let the people vote. 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 Not these little clowns, these little gutless boys and girls that love to get us killed as they keep taking money in their pockets from the defense industry. Morons and imbeciles call it campaign contributions. Adults call it bribes and payoffs. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for what you're doing. United we stand, dividing we die. And thank you all for putting this on. Thank you.
Let's keep that energy up. I want to welcome to the stage Dan Cohen, correspondent for Redacted.
Performer, all-American irritant to the powerful. She's coming up. She's going to be performing for us, and she's going to be introducing Jimmy Dore.
Come on, all of you big strong men. Uncle Sam needs your help again. He got himself in a terrible jam years ago in Afghanistan. So put down your books and pick up a gun. We're gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is in Iran. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Come on, generals, let's move fast. Your big chance has come at last. Gotta go get those towel heads. The only good Arab is the one that's dead. And you know that peace can only be won when we blow 'em all the kingdom come. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is in Iran. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Come on, Wall Street, get off your ass. You know war can be a gas. Lots of good money to be made. Supplying the army with tools of trade. Just make sure when you drop the bomb, you bomb Iran. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is in Iran. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Come on, mothers, let's go attack. Pack your kids off to Iraq. Come on, fathers, don't hesitate. Send your sons off before it's too late. Be the first one on your block to have your boy come home in a box. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is in Iran. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your friend and mine, for now, Jimmy Dore.
Hello, thank you. I'm going to hand for Nellie one more time. It's great to be here. It's really encouraging to see so many people come out like this. It really warms my heart. And it reminds me of my best friend, Barry Cribbins, who is a hilarious and courageous comedian, a staunch critic of the U.S. government. And I know if he was alive, he'd be here today. Turn him up! All right, so I'll hold this. So I've been thinking of my friend Barry Crimmins. He was a hilarious and courageous comedian. He was a staunch critic of the U.S. government, who I know if he was alive would want to be here today. And people would always ask him, hey, if you don't like America, why don't you move to another country? And he would say, because then I'd become a victim of our foreign policy. It's not what people can't hear in bed. Why is this? It's too low. It was just really loud.
They're scared. They got low.
Can we make it louder? No.
Saboteur in there, right?
Can we make it louder? Where's the guy? Is it over here? Can you make it louder? Can you make it louder? No, you can't make it louder. Oh, there you go. There you go. Holy shit, that wasn't hard, huh? What the fuck? All right, I'm not going to start over, but I should. Start over? All right. So I'm reminded, when I look out here, my friend Barry Crimmins, who was a hilarious and he was a courageous comedian. He was a staunch critic of the U.S. government. If he was alive, I'm sure he'd be here today. People would always ask him, hey, if you don't like America so much, if you're such a critic, why don't you move to another country? And he said, I would, but then I'd become a victim of our foreign policy. Joke worked twice. He used to say there's a reason why there's no viable third party in America. It's because corporations don't want to cut a third check. And that's a shame, because the two parties in America that we have just ain't cutting it. They both support sending over $100 billion to Ukraine. We could have spent that money saving lives with universal health care, but instead we spend that money taking lives overseas, which is our specialty. We send them what we call foreign aid. Foreign aid, that's money to another country. We drop care packages on their heads from the sky, but it's not full of food. And the only money we have left over, we're going to spend shooting down hobby balloons. Can you imagine if the Independence Day was just about balloons? I mean, the movie. Right? The aliens are invading, and man, they are taking their time. At least Macy's figured out how to make a balloon look like somebody. They could attack us with Superman or something. Would Mickey Mouse's adorable ears eavesdropping on our cell phone conversations be so much worse than the NSA? I don't think so. Do you know we could end this war today through diplomacy, but our politicians want to enrich weapons manufacturers so they keep donating to them to the tune of $100 billion. Chris Hedges has called America a mafia state. Systems of governance that are seized by a tiny cabal become mafia states. The military-industrial complex and the Ukraine war represent an orgy of looting and corruption. America is the most powerful mafia that has ever existed. And the hitmen in that mafia have military pilot licenses. The difference between our government these days and the mafia in the 1940s, well, the mafia in the 1940s helped defeat the Nazis. They used longshoremen and union leaders. It's a sad day when you can't even trust the mafia anymore. Do you know what America really needs? We need to take the money out of Ukraine and give it to everybody here so we can buy a balloon and a gun. Yeah! That's the only way we can settle this. We all need to be floating around shooting each other down out of the sky. Better yet, the guns shoot vaccine syringes. Yeah, that's America. Eat boosters, you motherfuckers. America is so corrupt, even our Peace Prize winners are war criminals. Barack Obama won a Peace Prize and he immediately ramped up the war in Afghanistan, starting bombing Libya, put a hit on Osama bin Laden, dropped 26,000 bombs in Syria. And that's the thing about those Peace Prizes. Nobody ever tries to win a second one. I have a list of things we could have bought with that $100 billion instead of sending it to Ukraine for killing people. Instead of sending money to Ukraine, we could get President Biden a dog that knows where to lead him when a press conference is over. We sent enough money to Ukraine to buy everybody a tank of gas. For all the money we've given to Ukraine, do you know how many eggs we could buy? Almost a dozen. With $100 billion, you know, they can say you could end homelessness for $20 to $40 billion. We could have ended homelessness, then restart homelessness, then say we were only kidding, and then end it again. We can't end homelessness in America. We can't even fix the bridges that the homeless people live under. That's how corrupt we are. Every American for $100 billion could have had a home. But it's way more important that we make sure nobody in Ukraine has a home, because now it's going to be turned into a crater. We could give every homeless person in America $160,000. Or, if we want to help Americans but still show our support for Ukraine, we could buy every homeless person in the United States 7,000 Ukraine flag fleece blankets. We could have used that $100 billion. $100 billion would have provided universal health care to all the people in Algeria, Botswana, Morocco, Rwanda, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Romania, Croatia, Mexico, and Peru. Oh, wait. Those countries already have universal health care. My bad. For the $100 billion, we could buy 2 FTX collapses. For $100 billion, we could buy every person on Earth a blue check mark on Twitter. Because shouldn't we all have an equal opportunity to be insufferable assholes? For $100 billion, we could get Chick-fil-A to stay open on Sundays and perform gay weddings. For $100 billion, we could buy an entire separate Russian invasion of Ukraine and have enough left over to pay Hunter Biden's monthly salary for the rest of his life. For $100 billion, we could break the Bank of England 3 times. We could buy every man, woman, and child in America an opportunity to pick something really nice from the Goop catalog. I know I didn't get that joke either. For $100 billion, we could have the entire cast of Shark Tank dropped into an actual Shark Tank. We could pay for 90 Alex Jones lawsuits. We could buy a shit ton of balloons to spy on China and still have enough money left over for complete regulatory capture. Isn't that special? We could have gotten like 5 experimental drugs approved. For $100 billion, we can remake the Marvel Avengers movie with the entire original cast, but as a porno. We could do that 90 times over. We could have spent that money on transportation, high-speed rail, but it was more important to fund the people who duct tape somebody to a lamppost with their pants pulled down. We could cure cancer, but Big Pharma wouldn't be happy with that because they prefer sick people instead of healthy ones. With the money we sent to Ukraine, we can hire an entirely separate new police force to protect us from the current police force. We could have funded everyone having free college instead of buying a Mount Kilimanjaro's worth of blow for Zelensky. Why are we sending that money to Nazis in Ukraine when we could be funding Nazis here in America struggling to buy eggs? Isn't that just like our government to neglect all the Nazis we have here in America? This is really a fight over nuclear war. Just across the road, there's a statue of Albert Einstein, and man, he looks depressed. He once said, if I could do it all over again, I'd be a plumber. You know why he said that? I thought it was because his toilet was always backed up. And it was because the military-industrial complex used his science to kill people. They took Einstein's discovery and used it to melt the skin of Japanese civilians. Entire cities full of children and animals extinguished in less than a minute. Generations poisoned by radiation. Bombs today are much more powerful than those bombs we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I know there's some people who wouldn't show up to this peace rally, this anti-war rally, because of some of the speakers they didn't like on this stage. And I get what they're saying. They're saying, hey, I want to help stop a nuclear war, but